Ban Ki-moon discussed the situation in Syria and Lavrov, and Ki-moon stressed the need to resolve the Syrian crisis through dialogue. Units of the Syrian Arab Army continue to target the remains of armed terrorist groups in various areas. And German Interior Minister admits that up to 700 Europeans are fighting within the ranks of armed terrorist groups in Syria, warning that the terrorists could return to Europe. Good afternoon, this is news in English from the Syrian Arab television in Damascus. Russian President Vladimir Putin discussed with UN Secretary General Ban Ki-moon the situation in Syria and other international issues. Itar quoted the Russian President's advisor Dmitry Peskov as saying that during the talks, Putin briefed Ki-moon on the Russian stance regarding the solution to the crisis in Syria. He added that both sides exchanged viewpoints in details and discussed the problems related to the settlement in Syria. Peskov said that Putin also briefed Ki-moon in details on the latest contacts with the British Premier David Cameron and South African President Jacob Zuma. Earlier, Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov and Secretary General of the United Nations Ban Ki-moon stressed the need to resolve the crisis in Syria through dialogue as soon as possible. Head of the Change and Reform Bloc at the Lebanese Parliament, member of the Parliament, Michel Aoun, said that Arab countries are experiencing an Arab hell, not an Arab Spring, in light of the violence witnessed in Tunisia, Egypt, Libya, Syria and elsewhere. In an interview with Al Mayadeen TV, Aoun said that what's happening in the area is affecting Lebanon due to the deliberate negligence of the Lebanese state, which turned its back to events taking place in Lebanese areas like Tripoli, Akkar, Arzal and Wadi Khalid, which became buffer zones and are being used to smuggle gunmen and weapons into Syria as the authority of Lebanon, the Lebanese state, receded from them. Aoun reiterated that Syria will be victorious in the war targeting it and that the Syrian leadership will remain and the countries which boycotted it will return and hold dialogue with it. The Italian defense minister stressed the need to reach a political solution for the crisis in Syria. During a press conference after his meeting with the head of the caretaker government in Lebanon, Najib Mikati, and a number of political and military officials, the Italian minister said that the international parties have to find a political agreement that serves the interests of all the Syrians. Also, German Interior Minister Hans-Peter Friedrich said that up to 700 Europeans are fighting with the armed terrorist groups in Syria, mainly as militant Islamists, warning that the militants could return as homegrown terrorists. More about that in the following report.
The Guardian newspaper quoted German Interior Minister as calling for a controversial new policy that would temporarily prevent Europeans fighting in Syria from re-entering Europe. The paper added that the Interior Ministry is worried that the fighters will return to Germany, where they could operate as homegrown terrorists, and is pushing for pan-European action to diminish that risk. The chances of success, however, look limited. According to the paper, the German Interior Minister intends to raise the issue at a meeting of the EU governments next month. He will ask for a 2-year re-entry ban to the EU for the suspected Islamists. However, it may be difficult legally to keep them out, as most of them carry passports from EU countries. Many often have families in the countries concerned and may have had jobs and entitlements in the EU. A year-long survey by King's College in London of more than 200 jihadist-linked websites and hundreds of Arab and Western press reports found last month that up to 600 individuals from 14 countries, including the UK, Austria, Spain, Sweden and Germany, had taken part in fighting along with the armed groups in Syria.
The British Financial Times newspaper said that Qatar has spent $3 billion for funding the armed terrorist groups in Syria. The Daily quoted the Peace Research Institute in Stockholm as saying that Qatar is the largest exporter of weapons to the armed groups in Syria, referring that it funded more than 70 weapons shipment to Turkey from April 2012 until March. According to the paper, Saudi Arabia was competing with Qatar in supporting the armed groups in Syria. The newspaper concluded that the Qatari support for the armed terrorist groups is bigger than the Western support for these groups. A military source said that a Syrian Arab Army unit destroyed a number of explosive devices and explosives manufacturing factories in the industrial area in Yabrud in Damascus countryside, killing all the terrorists inside them, and most of them from foreign nationalities. The source added in a statement that among the terrorists, 12 leaders of the armed terrorist groups and a big number of terrorists from Saudi Arabia, Tunisia, Libya and Afghani nationalities. Syrian Arab Army units restored security to Tel Salmo of Idlib governorate after eliminating terrorists which were killing, frightening and stealing people's properties there. In Homs also, Mudan village got rid of terrorism after suffering a long time from mercenaries killing and torturing the citizens there.